for all of us. It's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today. Today on the show, I've got Todd Smith. He's the Chief Marketing Officer at Traeger. They're the creator and category leader of wood pellet grills. Traeger pellet grills use 100% all-natural hardwood fuel to infuse food with flavorful smoke, making food taste delicious and memorable. They also produce a lot of other accessories to the cooking experience, whether it's rubs, sauces, or accessories for your grill. We talk about that and much more today with Todd, and they have a growing community. They call it the Traegerhood, and we talk about how community is being fostered by marketing and much more. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Todd Smith. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. One, because, who doesn't like to talk about grilling food and grills in general? So we'll get into that. But before we get into the business side of this, it's not every day that someone I know or comes on this show has a brush with both LeBron James and Kanye West. And I have to know, what was that like? You got to tell us the story.
Yeah, it's I've been in some really interesting situations that my jobs have taken me to. And this one was back in 2010. LeBron had the famous The Decision, where it was an hour-long broadcast of LeBron letting the world know where he was going to be taking his talents to in the following years. And so at the time I was working on the Vitamin Water brand. LeBron James was a partner, and we were part of the whole production of this hour-long content that was aired on ESPN Live. And, we had integration in the show. And so I'm sitting there nervous, making sure everything looks all right. And also just nobody knew where he was going. And all of a sudden Kanye West walks in, and he is kind of curious, he's with LeBron. And I'm thinking right away, wow, Kanye's from Chicago. This might be the Bulls, which is where I'm from originally. So I was starting to get excited. But then, of course, LeBron says, I'm going to be taking my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat. So my brush with them, maybe within 5 feet of each other, but it was one of those surreal moments that I'll never forget.
Yeah, no, it's I always love those brushes with celebrities. My wife, I used to go to this conference every year where they have a couple folks usually throughout the couple of days, and I'm not one of those that would go get a selfie with everyone, but like the occasional ones I would, and so Nelly was there, and that's the one I was like, I have to get a selfie with Nelly. Come on. And so she chides me about it all the time now. But that's amazing, though. LeBron and Kanye in the same room, feet apart from each other. And what a crazy moment in time, right? Just in sports history of him making that decision to go to Miami. It's crazy. Well, from your brush with fame to now,
back to reality,
back to Chief Marketing Officer at Traeger. Tell us a little bit more about your path. Obviously, you were at Vitamin Water for a little bit of time, but tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I started management consulting, and then I worked at a .com back during that the heyday of when people were trying to figure out what's going on with the internet. And I was working at a company that was doing online direct marketing with a lot of different brands. Amazon was one of our clients at the time. They just sold books, so a lot has changed since then. But also working, Unilever, Kraft, P&G, and I was on the kind of client services side, managing these different campaigns for brands. And my clients were brand managers, and I had a deep respect for them, loved as I learned about their job and their path. And a lot of them had been through business school, and it's always been one of my goals. So I did that and ended up going on to Coke and worked for about 10 years there, where I worked on the Powerade business, which was a connection to me because I was a college athlete. I had a connection with it. Really had a great time there leading brand relaunch. We had some great years of growth and in a real competitive category. So it was fun being the fighter brand. And then I moved over to the Vitamin Water business. Coke had paid $4.2 billion for Glasso, so makers of smart water and vitamin water. and had an opportunity to move up to New York. I was this Midwestern kid that worked in the Southeast that landed in Queens and had a kind of a wild awakening in a lot of ways. And I just learned a ton. I was able to work alongside the founders who were just amazing brand builders. These are folks that lived the brand, had amazing hustle. In New York City, is just many people know, but it's a proving ground for beverages and snacks. And you've really got to make sure that you've got a brand that will fly off the shelf in bodegas and other places that people are choosing one bottle at a time. And I learned a ton. It was a big period of growth for me. But then I left and became CMO at a company called Exos. This is a company that created the human performance category, mainly known for training elite athletes, which is usually about half of the NFL draft train at Exos, elite military, and about a quarter of the Fortune 500. And it was a great experience because I joined and it was really during a growth phase for the company. They didn't have a marketing department, was able to build out a team, build out a brand. In fact, we rebranded the company from Athletes Performance to Exos. It was a 13-year-old company, and we were working with a founder by the name of Mark Verstegen, who's just an amazing human being. But when I took a step back later, I felt like, gosh, we just like renamed his baby, right? This 13-year-old. So it's like we renamed his teenager, which is a really unique experience. Not a lot of founder-led companies go through that. And it's really just, this kind of says a lot about the person that he was. So I was at Exos for about 7 years. And then over the past 3 years have been here at Traeger, and it's been an amazing ride.
Yeah. You've crossed industries. Now that I think about it, beverage, services, professional services early on, and now I guess it's like a mix of consumer products to some degree, quote unquote, and like big, like durable products. Did you think about that as you're transitioning from one to the other? I mean, marketing usually translates for the most part, but like just curious.
Yeah, I've had that question asked a few times before, and I think as long as marketer at heart understands their consumer and understands really how to build a brand with them, whether it's a physical good, a service, B2B marketing, B2C marketing, to me, it kind of all goes out in the wash, and it's about who are you trying to reach? How do you build a connection? And if anything, working in these different types of categories and different types of end consumer, hopefully that's made me a little bit better at what I do.
Let's talk about the role that you have. How is the role of CMO defined at Traeger?
Yeah, the main focus areas for us is really across brand marketing, digital product, culinary, as well as consumer insights. Over my time here, I've also had customer experience, so customer service has been part of this job, working on different new business ventures. And I spend a ton of my time really partnering with our sales, product, and technology teams, among others, but that's really where I spend most of my time.
Gotcha. And one of the things you were talking about, I think the last time we were talking to each other, is you guys have built a community, if you will, or where there is a community, maybe I should say, that you call the Traegerhood. Tell me a little bit about that and like, where did that come from?
Yeah, it's unlike any community I've ever witnessed with brands. And it's something where it's really, the community owns our brand much more than we do. It's such an engaged community that we call them the Traegerhood. And it's really everyone from, your casual grillers to competition pit masters, professional chefs, and the kings and queens of the cul-de-sac, if you will. They're just passionate advocates, and they really help continue really to grow our brand. Some things that have happened over the past years that kind of brings it to life for me is that, we just received our 6th wedding invitation of the year for Traeger to attend somebody's wedding. There's been a few birth announcements this year with people naming their children Traeger or getting tattoos on their bodies. And I just think when you take a step back and think of like a hard good, a home appliance, if you will, that people are tattooing on their body, naming their children, and inviting to weddings, like it's hard to come up with other brands in those categories that are having those same experiences. And we just feel like, humbled and kind of honored to have this passionate consumer base that, we're just constantly looking for ways to make their experience better with our brand.
Yeah. I love how you talk about the kings and the queens of the cul-de-sac, because grilling it's both a personal sport. Sport may be the wrong word, but it's a personal event. It's, an enjoyment factor of, making a meal. But many, many, many times is at least a family event, if not a much bigger event. And that makes a lot of sense that, people would be passionate about it. I don't think I've heard many brands talk about people. Wedding invitations is a whole new thing. I haven't heard that one at all. But names of children or tattoos, I mean, it makes me think of like Harley Davidson or something. Like, that's the brand that comes to mind when I think about those types of things. Did you know that going in, that you had this like passionate user base, if you will?
As I was first coming into the brand, I realized that there are people that saying things like, this brand changed my life, which at face value, you kind of like, come on, give me a break. But when you really peel it back, this gives people an outlet, whatever they might be dealing with, whether it's discovering a passion, providing for others, connecting with friends and family. It goes back to our mission is really about bringing people together to create a more flavorful world. And it's not just about the food, it's about living a life full of flavor. And I think you can see how that might connect in with people that might be in different stages of their lives, whether it's just getting into outdoor cooking, or it's somebody who's really passionate about it and wants to perfect that, that make that perfect brisket, if you will. So it's a really unique community, and we feel really just honored to be part of our brand.
That's awesome. So like, as you think about the community, like what's marketing's role in either fostering or fueling that community? How do you think about it?
Yeah, it's much more fostering. I mean, it's like as I was saying, like we're more gardeners and trying to do things and introduce fun stuff to get people excited about our brand, want to cook more. As word of mouth is huge for us. We found in some research that we've done that 80% of Traeger consumers refer 5 people to the brand. And this is a brand with only 3% household penetration. So there's such a long runway for growth. We try to look for creative ways that resonate with the community, dosing them with different ways to really engage. We've got a passionate brand and creative team that does a lot of fun stuff. Like, as an example, we launched a limited edition meat sweats this past winter, where it was a really nice pair of meat sweats that had a nice holder for your tongs, kind of a wipe area that would get rid of the grease that might come on and cooking your meal, and just kind of having fun and not taking ourselves too seriously. Even, April Fools is something, some brands have fun with it, some don't. We tend to try to have fun at least. And this past April, we announced a new limited edition bag of weed pellets. And there was a lot of different reactions, which was fun and got people talking. And even some customers called up and asked when they were going to be receiving that so they could sell it. So, we try to have fun. At the end of the day, we go back to our mission and what we're trying to do. And it's a good place. We also rely on digital channels to foster a strong sense of the social media for us. We started really as a digital social brand. It's an easy way for our team to interact with consumers more on a one-to-one basis, but really get that scale. We've got a hyper-devoted following of fans and other community ambassadors that include pitmasters, celebrities, athletes, and even just home chefs who cook a lot and like to share content. Having that engagement is super important. And, we also do that through their digital product. And we have our Traeger app holds just a massive catalog of recipes and other content that empower people to cook new things at home, and just trying to also adapt, right? During COVID, prior to COVID, we actually had a lot of in-person cooking classes where they're really instrumental in teaching people to cook on a Traeger, inspiring them, super fans to come and experience the brand. It was amazing. But in 2020, we really couldn't do that anymore. So we pivoted and started a series of Traeger Kitchen Lives, where on a weekly basis, we were in the homes of famous chefs and other people who are part of the community, bringing to life a live show where we had over 150,000 people tuning in on a weekly basis, which was kind of crazy when everyone was in their homes. So, it's unique. The other thing that I'd say is that we have Traeger Day every May. It is a made up holiday, but it's just a way to celebrate and kind of get people to cook together. and wherever they may be and share with their friends and family. So it's kind of a big pulse of the community that really kind of kicks off the barbecue season, traditional barbecue season, in a way that also just connects everyone across the community.
That's awesome. You think about people buying a grill, it's a couple times in your lifetime purchase. It's not something you're doing a lot. But you guys have built, one, it's got an avid community, but you've got like this experience that goes on forever, right? Like it's not just about the purchase, it's about the use. How are you, I think you've got a program or something you call Beyond the Grill. Tell me more about what you're doing there.
Yeah, it's really about the customer journey and everything you think about, from inspiration, education, kind of procurement of ingredients. How do you prep the meal, cooking, the entertaining, the sharing? We look at that journey and think about where our brand has a right to play there. And one of those areas is different consumables. So obviously you've got the pellets that fuel it and give it the great wood-fired flavor. But you also have sauces, rubs, and other things that people use to create amazing recipes that we play as well. We have a lot of innovation in this area as well. In the first half of this year, we launched new flavors of pellets, rubs, sauces. It's something that also launched in the grocery channel. It's traditionally been in our hardware channels and home improvement, but in working closely with the consumer, understanding the shopping patterns, consumers were looking for our rubs and sauces in areas where they shop frequently. And grocery was one of those. So that's expanded to over 2,000 different doors of Kroger this year. So it's an interesting part of the business for us because it's, as you mentioned, it's beyond just the first, the grill purchase. It's this ongoing. So it ties into what we do from a digital product, digital marketing standpoint, ultimately inspiring our consumers to cook more often and experience new things with their Traeger.
Yeah. You've worked at places like you Coke as one example, and you've worked with other consumer brands that deliver in grocery. That's a big change in distribution, going from like hardware or online digital channels to working with retailers. Curious, like, did you have to build out that muscle, that capability, and like how long did that take to do, if you will?
Yeah, we've got some talented folks that we're able to bring onto the team that came from the consumer packaged goods world. I had a little bit of a muscle, but we brought in others that were kind of a little bit more fresh off the CPG streets to kind of help build that out. And they've done an amazing job, and a lot of excitement in the future coming there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a slight different skill experience is the right word that I'm looking for, but like knowing what's working in those channels, you do kind of have to be up to date. So
yeah, no, it's definitely unique. The good thing is that we've got some great partners on the customer side that are also kind of working with us because they see the opportunity as well, and consumers coming in looking for it.
Well, I hear you guys, beyond like expanding into retail or grocery, you've got fantastic collaborations. Like one I heard about recently with Whistle Pig Whiskey. Tell me a little bit more about like what that looks like and how did that come about? Yeah,
Whistle Pig is a brand that we've always respected just for how they've built their brand, and spirits and barbecue go pretty well together. So it was a bit of a natural opportunity. This summer in July, Whistle Pig launched a smokestack whiskey that used our Traeger pellets to infuse smoke into the water that was used in the distilling process. They also use smoke barrels to age the whiskey. So if you haven't tried that, if you can find it, good luck, because it's been getting a great response. But we're also kind of, sometimes collaborations are just one way. This one is also kind of, our part of the partnership as well. We're launching a limited edition set of wood pellets that are made out of the Whistle Pig staves, as well as a new Traeger dry rub and sauce in partnership with Whistle Pig that uses flavors of maple and whiskey. So there's really true kind of product collaboration as well on both sides, and really kind of bringing those core elements of what makes the products unique to life. So that's something that we're excited about.
Yeah. Well, and as I think about it, I'm a bourbon drinker, and Whistle Pig is a premium, like super, I don't even know the category, but it's a super premium, I think, if I'm using category specifically, whiskey or bourbon. And makes sense too that, because you guys are our premium grill. In my book, you are. I don't know if you see yourselves that way, but like, I think, and you've got a line that kind of goes up and down a little bit, but like a premium brand and whiskey working with a premium grill brand, that just seems like a match made in heaven to some degree.
Yeah, no, they've been a great partner, and it's a way for both of us to reach like-minded consumers and share our brand also with their audience.
Well, and I do like how you said it's a two-way partnership. It's not like you just brought them into the mix to have access to them. They're using your technology and products as well. That's not something you hear in every good partnership. So that's great. Well, how are you thinking about the grills themselves? We've been talking about everything except the grill. How are you driving innovation within the grill themselves?
Yeah, Traeger has a strong track record of product innovation, and that's always been one of the key growth drivers. This was a brand that created the original wood pellet grill in 1987, and it's something that we've got an amazing product team that's driven a lot of innovation over the years. Earlier this year, we launched a new Timberline grill, and this is kind of our top of the line, more halo product. Which is really a game changer in terms of outdoor cooking. Really, I would say that nothing else in this space has all the different innovative features that are included with this grill. And the reception from consumers have really been great. It's something that really, we talked before about that consumer journey, and our product team really looked at how do we look at that cooking experience and where are those moments where we have the opportunity to make wood pellet grilling even better. And really, there's certain pain points that over the years, and consumers that cook with this type with outdoor grills or pellet grills know, and they did an amazing job of developing this cooking experience that addresses that. And it's some new technology that's come to life and stuff that will roll out across future lines across all different price points.
Well, and I mean, just some of the things that I've looked at as it relates to your products. I mean, you've got like the Bluetooth meat probes. You've got like easy clean kegs, I guess, for grease and ash. There's a lot of little, and they're not little, but like to your point, like they solve a pain point, like I don't want to have a little disposable thing for grease and ash is really helpful, frankly.
Yeah. It's a great example. Traditionally you have to vacuum out your wood pellet grill regularly to get all the ash, but this grease and ash keg captures it all, and you can kind of dump it out, and it saves a step, and it's improves that experience.
Well, grilling, I mean, we could talk about this forever, I think. And then you throw whiskey in the mix, and yeah, we could go on for days. But it's been fun, like to learn a little bit about what you're doing at Traeger. You've been there 3 years, driving a lot of innovation, it feels like, in all respects of the customer journey and staying close to them. Kudos on the work you guys are doing. It's pretty phenomenal.
Thank you very much. We got a great team, and we have a lot of fun along the way.
Well, one of the things we like to do on this show is get to know you a little bit better. We know you've hung out with the celebs from the top of the show, but one of my favorite questions to ask is, has there been an experience of your past that defines and makes up who you are today? Yeah,
that's a really great question. Good question for any interview of somebody you're bringing into your company. But for me, I've had some great managers, and one in particular who I worked for at Vitamin Water. He talked about his coaching tree, if you will. I'm a sports fan, and people talk about John Wooden and his coaching tree. And he talked about the people that he worked for and that worked for him. And I kind of try to take that even further, just thinking about, I really do judge my success based on the people that I can impact in some way, that are part of my tree. And I was impacted by this person a lot, in a lot of ways, one of the better managers that I've had. And to me, that's really how I judge myself. And it was funny when he started talking about this, I was like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, there's, looking now, there's people today that I stay close with that I worked with. And whether it's for, checking in on advice or just updates or just staying in touch, one of them, he rose to be CMO at a company that was acquired recently. And there's some others that we're part of a CMO at an organization that just went public recently. And, it's just, those are the things that really matter to me. And I think about that a lot. And hopefully, at the end of the day, when all this is, when you're done with your career, you think you're really left with the people that you worked with in those relationships.
Yeah, it is. We talked about the customer journey earlier. It is also a journey of your career. It's a marathon, right? And I like how you put that, the coaching tree and the people you're able to impact and support and along the way, and that you're judged by their action, like what they're able to achieve as well, which I think that's great. If you're starting this journey all over again, what advice would you give your younger self?
It was a lesson I learned. It's kind of a common sense one, but it's a lesson I learned when I was doing my internship at Coke, and I worked on a project that was working with the McDonald's team at Coke. And as I learned about this relationship, it goes back to when McDonald's was starting, and Ray Kroc didn't have any money and basically formed a partnership with Coca-Cola over a handshake. And today, there's not at least back when I was there, maybe there is today, but there wasn't a formal contract. It was all built on this handshake and this relationship, and that was protected. It was valued. And I guess the advice from that is, like, value those relationships. This is the small world we live in, small circles that you run in. People come back into your lives in different ways, and take the time, not just on the professional side, but on the personal, and value those relationships.
Great advice. Is there a topic that you think marketers should be learning more about, or maybe it's something you're trying to learn more about yourself these days?
Yeah, there's always an opportunity to learn. And I try to do my best to stay up to speed by just being a consumer of these and diving in, whether it's machine learning, personalization, content creation. But there's folks that I work with that are more experts than I am in there that I can learn a ton with, and I trust them. For me as a marketer, I come back to kind of why I got excited about this type of profession, is that you've got to really be close to your consumer and your customer, get close to them, interact, observe. And sometimes I think we forget that. You can't get away from the consumer. There might be new buzzwords and technologies and other things, but at the end of the day, when you're building a brand, you've got to have that connection. And really, you can't take your eye off that ball.
Yeah. I mean, without them, we don't have anything, right?
Yes.
We have to remember that, like, with all the tech in the world, if you don't have a customer, you don't have a business. Very wise advice. As you think about brands that are out in the world, or companies or causes, are there any that you follow or you think other people should be taking notice of? Yeah,
there's two. One's recent in the news. Just I think what Patagonia has done recently, kind of putting their money where their mouth is, transferring ownership of the company to fight climate change. That's delivering on a brand promise. It's kind of like, you don't really need to say much else. And they've been very consistent with that message. But to me, this is just a great proof point as a brand of kind of the actions kind of match the soundtrack that the brand is saying. That's one. The other one that I'm just more of a fan of as a consumer is as well as Liquid Death. Coming from the beverage industry for many years, I love disruptive beverage brands, or brands in general, but beverage brands specifically. And this is a category that is kind of littered with brands that have mountains and streams and other imagery, and they just kind of flipped it on its head. And it's also, when you get beyond kind of the shock value of things, like, it's a brand that's fighting plastic waste of bottles that end up in landfills in the ocean. They've done it in a really authentic, disruptive way, and I think it's admirable.
Yeah, it is a brand that I did not hear about. I actually heard about on this show. There was another CMO a little while ago that we had on, and Ricky Engelberg, actually, I'm pretty sure I'm saying his last name right, from Vista, which used to be Vista Print. Now Vista is like a holding company of different companies. But he mentioned it as well. And I was like, what is that? And it is such a unique product, meaning, like, when I first saw it, I thought a kid was drinking a beer. Like, and I was like, what is that? It's a little bit, the dad came out like, what are you drinking? And then I figured it's water. And I'm like, what? This is crazy. So, it's quite an interesting twist in that category for sure. And then Patagonia that you mentioned, I mean, that was like, it was definitely one of those mic drop moments. It's like, it's like, what do you say after you've transferred ownership to Fight Climate? Not much else to say. Last question for you. What do you think is the largest opportunity or threat facing marketers today?
I think it's a combination. You need to make sure you're staying up to speed with the different trends. And because the way to reach the consumer is constantly evolving. I think what I try to do is just focus on what are those unique competitive advantages or moats that set your brand apart, taking time to understand your consumer, what they love about your brand, and lean into those qualities that drive loyalty and engagement. For myself, I think one of the things that I've seen over the years is kind of the blurring lines between different functions and roles. Specific to marketing or the CMO, it's like there's this blurring lines of like CMOs, CXOs, CDOs, and that ebbs and flows on the CMO role was supposed to be dead 5 years ago. But I think it comes down to it's just an opportunity. It's just the more you're willing to learn, the better that you'll be positioned and add value to your brand and your company, whether that's learning new technologies, putting yourself out there in a different space that you're not totally comfortable with. You just got to be consistently willing to learn and also being a consumer of these new technologies. And that's something that I think you always got to challenge yourself to stay up to speed on.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with what you said. I was at a conference recently that there were at least one, maybe two executive recruiters talking about the titling, if you will, of various marketing officers like you just described. And this one person in particular, I thought had a really good, interesting way to think about it is in a marketing perspective as well on the CMO role. If you think about the CMO from like 15 years ago and how it was defined, and maybe even a little bit longer than 15 years ago at this point. But the rise of digital came about and you saw chief digital officers popping up. And then there's been a decline of pure chief digital officers versus where it started. And CMOs have kind of taken over more and more of that responsibility. He described it as kind of like CMOs are going through brand stretch, of the function itself. And so they're creating these offshoots to kind of redefine and stretch the role, if you will. But his belief is that CMOs will never die, that role, at the end of the day, it's really marketing with a big M, despite what you might call it today. And like today, I think we're moving into this space again of blurring lines, like you talked about, where you've got chief growth officers, chief commercial officers. And I think some of that is just merging the sales and marketing function, which I'm not sure is entirely here to stay. But I also think it's also a perception of like, no, marketing should be driving growth. And so we're going to call you a chief growth officer right now. But I think chief marketing officers will be here to stay.
To me, the skills that you have are kind of what matters. It's whatever they call it. Who knows what it will be in 5 years. But I do agree with you. It's like, for me, the power of your brand is extremely important. And I think from what you do from a marketing perspective with a big M, to your point, is critical, because that's what has lasting power and longevity for your brand.
Well, Todd, again, grills and whiskey, we could talk all day long, but it's been fantastic to have you on the show. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insight.
Appreciate it, Alan. Thanks for having me. Big fan of your podcast and what you do and all the different perspectives that you bring to life. And thanks for taking the time with me today.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me, with support from my team and podcast editors, sound engineers, and writers at Share Your Genius. Find them at shareyourgenius.com. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe on marketingtodaypodcast.com and tell your friends and colleagues about the show. I love to hear from listeners. You can contact me on marketingtodaypodcast.com. There, you will also find complete show notes, links to what was discussed in the episode today, and you can search our archives. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today.